We're going to be talking about, as it says up on the board, what?
The age of exploration.
There you go, the explorers of the New Worlds, okay? So we are going to be talking about those individuals who came from the Old World to the New World. Real quick, just as a reminder, what was the Old World? You don't need to raise your hand.
England. And like the no-till.
Europe.
It's the same thing. Okay, never mind, it's not.
Africa. Asia, good job. What then was the New World? North and South America, well done. So we're going to talk about the explorers who come to the Americas, be it North America or South America, okay? As usual, we do have some key questions that we'll be addressing through this. First key question is, who were the major Spanish explorers? Second one, who was the major English explorer? And third, who were the major French explorers? So we'll be talking about these three different groups of explorers as they come over. And remember, when we are talking about explorers and we talk about where they are from, we're not necessarily saying, what country do they belong to? We're talking about what country do they sail for. So if you are an Italian individual, but you sail for Spain, we're going to call you a Spanish explorer. If you are French and you sail for England, you're an English explorer. If you're from Portugal and you sail for France, you're a French explorer. Does this make sense? Okay. Now, we should have out on our desks, which some of us do, some of us do not though, the two charts that you were given last class. Okay. We'll be filling the pivotal events out as we go. And then again, age of exploration is on your own. Okay. But so these are the three key questions. Who were the major Spanish explorers, English explorer, and French explorers? If you don't have them, don't worry, you will see them again. All right, so first couple slides are just review. If something is review, do you need to write it down? No, if you know it, if you have it in your notes already, if it is embedded in that beautiful brain that God gave you, there's no reason to write it down, okay? But when we're talking about the New World, we're talking about the fact that this was discovered by Columbus in 1492, but really the first Europeans that arrived here about 500 years before. What was that group of Europeans who had come prior to the Columbus exploration? The Norsemen. What was the other name of them? The Vikings. Good job, okay? And they had been led by an individual named Leif Erikson, okay? You don't need to know his name specifically. It's just one of those fun facts of history. So again, we're talking about the discovery of the New World by Columbus, okay? So mentioning Columbus, again, we've already talked about this before, but he was an Italian, sails under the Spanish flag. He'll make 4 voyages from 1492 to 1502. He will then be followed by Amerigo Vespucci, another Italian who was a cartographer. If you're a cartographer, what does that mean? A map maker, good job, okay? He sails in 1499, and he is the guy who recognizes America as being a new continent, hence America North and America South. Now, that is a picture, not a photo, but a picture, a painting, a portrait of what we think Christopher Columbus looked like. Because the fact of the matter is that while he was alive, late 1400s to the very early 1500s, only people of importance were able to get their portraits painted. Was Christopher Columbus a person of importance? Yes or no, and why or why not?
No.
I have a no.
He was a sailor. His discoveries weren't that important at the time.
Why?
Until
What did he do?
He discovered the land, but he didn't really bring much.
Well, what did he discover?
He discovered the North and South.
No, he didn't.
New lands.
There you go. All he discovered, in his view, was a way to sail west to get to lands that we already knew about. Remember Asia, the Orient, the Indies, we called it that, yes, no? Europeans already knew about it, so he wasn't discovering anything new. It wasn't until after his death that people realized, hey, wait a minute, this guy's pretty doggone important. So they went to his family, his friends, his compatriots, the sailors who went with him and said, hey, what did he look like? So we think this is what Columbus looked like while he was alive, but we really aren't sure. Okay, because again, during his life, he really wasn't viewed as being all that important. Another Spanish guy that we'll talk about is Balboa. You can list him as either Portuguese or Spanish because depending on who you believe and depending on what history you believe, he is sponsored by one or the other, or both of them even at certain times. But Balboa, again, he goes out in 1513. We talked about him last time. He crosses the Isthmus of Panama, and he's the first European to set eyes on the Pacific Ocean from the American side. Okay, so he sees the Pacific from where we would view the Pacific rather than seeing it from Asia. Okay, so Balboa is the first European to see the Pacific Ocean from the American side. Now, we've already talked about Columbus, we've talked about Vespucci, we've talked about Balboa. We have not, though, talked about Magellan, so this would be the new information that we'll start putting into our notes, okay? So Ferdinand Magellan, an interesting fellow. He was Portuguese as well, okay, but he does sail for the Spanish flag, and he makes a rather long journey. You know, when you think about Columbus, about 33 days to get from Spain to the New World, was here just a little bit and then went back. He was gone a few months at most. Okay? Ferdinand Magellan, this expedition lasts 3 years. So this is a much longer voyage, is it not? Okay? The reason it is a much longer voyage is because of where he goes. Okay? Rather than just sailing to the Americas, just sailing to the New World, he is going to sail all the way around South America. He will sail through the Straits of Magellan. Were they named the Straits of Magellan when he sailed through them? No, they are named after him. Okay? Fun meteorological fact about the Straits of Magellan, they are one of the most weather-wise violent places on the face of the earth. They average one major storm every 72 hours, which doesn't seem all that bad here in Indiana where we're on solid ground. But imagine that you are in a tiny little wooden boat in an area that no one you know has ever sailed through, and this is massively difficult weather. That would be terrifying, correct? This presents a huge challenge to Magellan, but he is able to successfully navigate the straits and will then continue on his voyage, and he is credited with being the first person to circumnavigate the globe. That was the purpose of Magellan's expedition. That's why it took so long. That's why it was 3 years long. Okay? Rather than just going and exploring, getting somewhere and coming right back, Magellan is setting out to prove that you can sail all the way around the world. Now, Magellan doesn't make it. He gets around South America, sails up through the Pacific, gets to the Philippines, and that's where he gets involved in Philippine politics, angers the wrong people, ends up looking like a human pincushion. He dies. His crew hightails it out, though, and they will continue the expedition. So does Magellan make it all the way around the world? Yes or no? No. But because it was his expedition, he's credited with being the first guy to sail. Now, that doesn't seem fair, correct? But again, it's his expedition, so he is indeed the one who says, yes, we can do this. For those of you that like maps, I'm a nerd, I like maps. This one goes ahead and shows it. Okay, you can see he leaves from Spain, down the coast of South America, through the Straits of Magellan, up through the Pacific Ocean, all the way to the Philippines. Hey, we know the Philippines. And then we sail south through the Indian Ocean, around the Cape of Good Hope, in Africa, all the way up the west coast, and then back to Spain. He leaves in 1519 with 5 ships and 250 men. We come back with 1 ship and 18 dudes. It's an 80% material loss and over a 90% casualty rate. Yes or no, this was a successful voyage?
Yes, because people made it back.
You're shaking your head no. Why are you saying no?
They lost a lot of people.
They lost a lot of people. Okay? Anybody want to take the refutation of that? They want to take the opposite side and say it was a successful voyage?
Yeah,
Why?
because they did what they were trying to do. They sailed and they made it back.
Exactly. Okay? So while there is a lot of loss, it is a successful voyage because the idea was to prove that we could indeed sail around the world. Okay? So losses, we can forget about those. What was the proof? We proved that we can indeed sail around the world. All right. So now we're going to change a little bit. We're still talking about explorers, but now we're not just talking about people that go and explore. We're talking about people that go and explore and conquer the area that they are talking about. This is one of my favorite historic pictures of all time. This is depicting the blood sacrifice of the Aztecs, okay? Everybody, if you would, take your hand and kind of tap right in the middle of your chest. What do you feel there? Your sternum, your breastbone. Go over like an inch to the left. For those of you that don't know your left, if you make the L with your hand, that's your left, okay? So if you go over there, it goes from being hard to being squishy, right? Okay? Now, the reason your breastbone is here is to protect all the valuable stuff inside of you. Well, we need to get to the valuable stuff. So what happens is they would take their sacrifice while alive to the top of one of their temples. You'd have 4 sort of lower priests. One each would grab your leg, your arm, stretch you out and hold you down on a big stone plateau, for lack of a better term. High priest stands above you, mutters some incantation with some sort of sharpened blade, be it a seashell, be it a stone, be it a stick, whatever, and then would slice you from collarbone to the bottom of your sternum, reach inside with their left hand, grab your ribs, pull them out, reach in with their right hand, grab your heart, squeeze it, pull it, twist it out of you, and before you died, you would see your heart spasming in their hand, and then you would pass out and die from loss of blood. That, to me, is pretty cool. Right? Wow, that seems horrible. Okay? Why would they do that?
Appease their gods.
Yeah. For those of you, and you probably, there may be none of you in here, but what's the first color you see when the sun rises? Okay, better question, since none of you have been awake for a sunrise. What's the absolute last color you see in a sunset? And I'm not talking like over your neighbor's roof, where it's a nice, pretty pink color. Okay, I'm talking like way out on the horizon, the last thing that you see before that sun slips down. What color is it? Red, like blood. The Aztecs believed that their gods needed blood to convince the sun to rise. Now, they wouldn't do this every day, but as part of their religious ceremonies, they would have blood sacrifices. And they would literally coat the sides of their temples with the blood of human sacrifices. That seems pretty barbaric, correct? And that is how the conquistadors viewed the Aztec people because of this, okay? So the first guy we're going to talk about is Hernando Cortez. You will see his name spelled various ways. You'll see Hernando, you'll see Hernan. You'll see Cortez with an S at the end, you'll see Cortez with a Z at the end. So there's 4 different ways you can spell it, but it's all the same guy, okay? He will explore the modern-day area of Mexico. Now, the reason it's called Mexico is because the Aztecs, one of the big sub-tribes, was the Mexican people. So they were the Aztec Mexico, so he called it, hey, it's Mexico. And that's what we pronounce it as today, okay? The reason he is important is because Cortez will be the guy who conquers the Aztecs, okay? So this was a massive empire in modern-day Mexico. They will be conquered by Hernan Cortez. Closely on his heels, we have Francisco Pizarro. He will explore sort of the modern-day nation of Peru, the west coast of South America, a very mountainous region, okay? And he will conquer the Inca, who live in those mountains, okay? So we have 2 conquistadors, 2 conquerors coming in, exploring, claiming the land, defeating the native people, and turning it from an Aztec or an Inca area into now a Spanish area. Okay? But Cortez and Pizarro. Up next, we have a guy named Juan Ponce de Leon, one of the more amusing individuals in world history. He will sail in 1513, and he will explore the modern-day state of Florida. What is he looking for? The Fountain of Youth, which does not exist, correct? I would argue that maybe it does, because where do all the old people go, and then it seems like they never die? They go to Florida, correct? I mean, you retire at age 65, you move down there, you live till like you're 130, it seems like, right? Okay, I'm obviously joking. There is no Fountain of Youth. However, a lot of educated people in Europe believe that there was because of the mythology of it. And when you look at things like Greek mythology and Roman mythology, a lot of that had been proven maybe not 100% true, but hey, you know, the theories behind some of the stuff in the scientific revolution were actually proven to be accurate. So hey, this Fountain of Youth, maybe it is out there. Maybe it's in this area that we would consider to be Florida. So that's where Juan Ponce de Leon goes and looks. Obviously, he will never find it because, as we know, it ain't real. Okay, but he will look for the Fountain of Youth. Up next, we have a really fun guy who's really known for what he didn't do rather than what he did do, a guy named Panfilo de Narvaez. Okay? And Panfilo de Narvaez was a contemporary, which means he was around the same time as Cortez. And these 2 dudes hated each other. And I mean like absolute hatred. You should not hate anyone, correct? Love the sinner, hate the sin. No, these guys each hated each other. They wanted the other one to die first so they could dance upon their grave. I mean, these were like actual horrible people to each other. Well, what had Cortez just done? What did we just talk about? What did he do?
Conquer the Aztecs.
He conquered an Aztec. He conquered a native empire, correct? Well, if my rival defeats an empire, what do I need to do to prove that I am just as good, if not better?
Conquered two.
I need to defeat an empire, exactly, okay? So in 1527, just a couple years after Cortez has subdued Mexico, in 1527, Narvaez will go out and he will look in North America, in our neck of the woods, for an Aztec empire. Unfortunately for him, there wasn't one. There were no more empires. The Aztecs were gone. The Inca were gone. In North America, there were no unified major empires. Instead, we had sort of the native tribal system that we're familiar with. Okay? But because he was such a rival of Cortez and didn't want to look like a loser, Narvaez will not admit that there is no North American empire, will die rather than admit that, and that's exactly what happens. He dies attempting to find that empire. You gotta be really, really, just hate-filled to die rather than admit that you're wrong, correct? And yet that's exactly what Narvaez would do, okay? All right, so the next guy we're going to talk about is a gentleman named Father Marcos. Now, Father is not his name, it's his title. What does that then imply? There you go, okay? He is a Catholic religious figure. He is, in fact, a Franciscan monk. Now, whereas a lot of the other individuals were going out for glory and gold, maybe this monk is going out for a different reason. What do you think he's going out for? Exactly, okay? He is going out with the intent that he wants to convert the natives, okay? He is looking, maybe a little bit of success would be good, maybe a little gold would be good, but really he is looking to convert the Native Americans. He's going out as a missionary. So in 1539, he will go out and he is going to explore the American Southwest for the fabled 7 cities of gold. I told you maybe a little gold's nice, maybe a little glory's nice. We're talking cities, big areas where lots of people would live, okay? So he's looking for Cibola, for El Dorado. Do you think he ever finds them? No. There aren't 7 cities of gold in the American Southwest. There's only one city of gold, and that's the New Jerusalem, which will descend from heaven, according to Revelation, correct? That hasn't happened yet. So he never finds these. But he does go back and say that they do exist. It seems sort of odd that a man of the cloth is going to go back and report that these things exist even though they don't, correct? Doesn't that just seem, you shouldn't lie, should you, right? Especially not if you're a religious leader. So the question is, was he lying? No, he wasn't. Here's why. By 1539, the Native Americans, they realized when the Spanish people show up, we die. So if they're here, we're going to be in trouble. So when Father Marcos shows up and says, hey, have you seen the 7 cities of gold? Do you want him to stick around or do you want him to keep going? You want to keep going. Hey, they're not here. Guess what? They're over there. And so he goes over there. He finds another tribe. Hey, have you seen the 7 cities of gold? No, we haven't, but they're over there. And if you're told something exists enough, you're going to start to believe it, correct? I mean, I haven't seen it, but all these tribes wouldn't be lying to me, would they? I'm about to break somebody's heart. I'm surely aware of this, okay? But parents tell kids that, like, the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus are real, correct? You're told that enough, you believe, oh, hey, there's a fat guy who comes down my chimney and leaves me presents, okay? You're shocked by the fact I'm going to break it. There is no fat guy that descends down the chimney. The elf on the shelf, no reporting back to the man in charge, okay? It's your parents. And hearts are shattering. I can feel it, okay? But you believed it because you were told it. Father Marcos believes it because he is told it, okay? So he will report back with success, and that will help spur the expedition of the next guy we'll talk about, which is Francisco Coronado. He will go out the very next year in 1540, and he is exploring the American Southwest as well. He, again, is looking for those 7 cities of gold. He will not find them either, but he is the first European to see a big, giant hole in the ground. What's the name of that big, giant hole in the ground in the American Southwest? The Grand Canyon, okay? So he is credited with being the first European to see the Grand Canyon and to be able to explore the Grand Canyon, which to me, it's a big hole in the ground. I don't get that excited about it. Anybody in here ever been to the Grand Canyon? Yes or no? It's a big hole in the ground. You're there 5 minutes, it's still a big hole in the ground. You're there 50, it's still a big hole in the ground, right? I'd rather go see something different. I mean, maybe it's like the greatest thing in your life that you have. I don't know. I'm not judging. Just to me, it's a hole. The end. Right? Whatever. All right. Next guy we're going to talk about is a gentleman named Hernando de Soto. You'll see his name spelled two ways as well. You'll see Hernando, and you'll just see Hernan. Either one is perfectly fine, and they are correct. Okay? Hernando de Soto will go out in 1539, and he is going to explore, for all of you college football fans out there, SEC territory. So he's going to like Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Kentucky, Tennessee, those areas of what would become the United States of America. Okay? And he is very brutal about how he is searching. He mistreats the natives of this area horribly, which is why when he gets sick in 1542 and dies, his crew, rather than just burying him, they're afraid that the natives are going to dig up his body and desecrate it, pull it apart, do bad things to it. And so they decide, rather than burying him, they're going to put him in full body armor that the Spanish would wear, fill all the empty spaces with rocks, and sink him to the bottom of the Mississippi River so that no one can ever find his body. You have to be a pretty terrible human in order to deserve that type of burial just to prevent somebody from getting back at you, correct? He was not nice. He was a terrible person. Okay? Now again, he thought he was doing the right thing, but historically we look back and we're like, no, that was incredibly wrong. Okay? But so that is Hernando de Soto. He also has a car named after him for all of those car buffs in here. All 0 of you, but that's okay. All right, so we've got our pivotal events chart out. Right now we're going to go ahead and write in spot number 2. 1519, Cortez defeats Aztec Empire. And the significance is this opens Mexico to Spanish settlement. Get this written in. Once it's written in, stand up so that I know that we can indeed move on.
We have one of these type of charts of each unit available.
All right, go ahead and sit back down. Let's move on. Now let's talk about the English explorer of the New World. That's right, there's only one of them, which seems odd because in North America, like Canada for the most part, and the US, we speak English, right? So you'd think there'd be more than just one English explorer, but really there's not, okay? He is a guy by the name of John Cabot. You don't get much more English than a name like John, correct? Okay, so it's sort of odd that this guy's actually Italian. His name is not really John. Anybody know the Italian name for John? Nobody? Oh, you're not versed in your Italian. It is Giovanni, okay? So it is Giovanni Caboto, okay? He was an Italian who sailed for the English. But the English are like, yeah, you sound too foreign. We're going to call you John. But John Caboto still sounds bad. Get rid of the last O. Hey, okay, cool, John Cabot. We can go with that. All right? So the English were very definitive. If you're going to sail for us, you got to have the name of one of us. Okay, so John Cabot, Giovanni Caboto, same guy. He will sail in 1497. This is like immediately after Columbus, is it not? I mean, Columbus goes out in 1492, finds it. The English are like, let's go. This is even before Vespucci says, hey, it's a new continent. So the English are like, no, we're going. This is great. We've got a way to the Indies. So they go in 1497. He will land along the coast of Nova Scotia. Any Latin students in here? All right, let's see it. What does it mean? New. Now, keeping in mind, he is from England. part of the United Kingdom today, part of Great Britain. So is there anything in that particular grouping of islands that maybe looks like Scotia? Scotland, aye. Okay? So he lands in this area and calls it Nova Scotia. I love Scotland. Okay? Scotland is one of my 2 favorite places in all of the world. I hate Canada, but I love Scotland. Okay? Anybody know why I love Scotland?
You're Scottish?
Aye. I was born in Scotland. I worked very hard to not speak with the Scottish brogue anymore. It's an incredibly fake accent. I moved here when I was 2. I don't speak Scottish at all or Gaelic in any way whatsoever, but I was born in Scotland. Okay? So I'm an immigrant. I can never run for president, which is fine because you'd never vote for me anyway, right? That's okay. But so he will land along the coast of New Scotland, Nova Scotia, and he will claim it for England. And then England will send no more explorers for like 8 decades. So he is the first English explorer and the last English explorer for 80 years. And the question is why? Why does England wait so long to send more people? It's not that they don't want to explore, it's that they can't explore. Because after 1497 in England, you have 2 things. Number 1, you have a civil war, and then, thanks to Martin Luther, you have the Protestant Reformation. And so the English are too busy trying to fix the problems they have at home to go out and explore. All right? So again, it's not that the English don't want to, it's that really they can't. You got to get your own stuff in order before you can go out and do the exploration. Okay? So John Cabot will be the one English explorer. And that then brings us to the French. We've talked about the first 2 French guys already. Okay? So we've talked about Giovanni da Verrazzano, the fact that he's an Italian, sails to like modern day New York and all along the East Coast. We talked about the fact that he is looking for a Northwest Passage. A Northwest Passage where, by the way? Where are all these people trying to get to? What's the purpose of like Columbus's voyage? Yeah, they're trying to get to the Indies, okay? Well, we already know that you can get to the Indies by sailing south and west. That was proven by south and west. Went all the way around. Magellan, good job, okay? Magellan proved you can go south and west, so the French are like, hey, if you can go south and west, maybe you can go north and west. So again, these guys are looking for a northwest passage to the Indies, to the Orient, to Asia, okay? They do not find one because it does not exist, okay? And then we've also talked about Jacques Cartier, goes out in 1534. He explores Canada, goes all the way to the interior of the continent, and that is why, again, about the eastern third or so of Canada still today speaks French. It was claimed in the name of France, okay? But these are the new French explorers. And the first guy we'll talk about is Samuel de Champlain. Or if you live in America, Samuel de Champlain. Okay? Please try to pronounce these names correctly. If you mispronounce them, if you butcher them, that's fine. I mean, they've been dead for hundreds of years. They're not going to come haunt you. And if they do, run. But Samuel de Champlain, okay? He goes out in 1605. Okay? And he is a cartographer, which again, just like Vespucci was, means he is a map maker. Okay, so he is going to chart this territory. What he does is he will actually found Acadia, which is the first French colony in Nova Scotia. Mr. Morris, 2 things. Number 1, you spelled it. Well, I know. That's because we would pronounce that how? We would pronounce it Acadia, like the GMC SUV, correct? But in French, D-I-A doesn't make dia, it makes a J-A sound. So it's actually Acadia, okay? So he will establish Acadia, the first French colony in Nova Scotia. On a second thing, I thought Nova Scotia was English. It was. The French hate the English, and they're like, you're not here, we're stealing it from you, okay? So Nova Scotia becomes French after Samuel de Champlain establishes the colony there, okay? This will then bring up Louis Joliet and Jacques Marquette. Well, these are things like from our territory, from the Midwest. Joliet is a town in Illinois, and Marquette is a university. All right, I mean, this is our area of the world, is it not? Okay, so we're talking French people where we are. Okay, so these guys, they're going to be the first people to explore the Mississippi River. And I say the first people, the first European people, to explore the Mississippi River. They're going to sail from Canada all the way down south to Arkansas. Okay, so from Canada to Arkansas. These are the first Europeans to do that. And then you get this guy, René Robert Cavelier de la Salle. That's his full name. How would you like to write that in kindergarten? Right? But René Robert, that's his first name. Cavelier, middle name. De means of. LaSalle is where he is from. René Robert Cavelier de LaSalle. You don't need to know his full name. Just put LaSalle. That's okay. All right? But what he will do is he's like, you know what, Joliet and Marquette, you guys didn't go far enough. You stopped. I'm going to go all the way. So he becomes the first European to travel down the Mississippi River all the way from Canada, the upper Great Lakes, down to the Gulf of Mexico. Okay? Because he is the first European to do so, he believes he can claim all of that territory. And so he claims all of that territory in the name of the King of France. Now, you may not know who the King of France is, but there were 16 of them. And if you're ever not sure about who King of France was, guess Louis. So who does this guy name all the territory after? King Louis. Okay? Louis the 14th. He will claim Louisiana. In French, I-A-N-A means belonging to or belonging of or from. So this is all Louisiana, the territory belonging to King Louis. All right? So King Louis the 14th. All of this territory is claimed Louisiana in his name. So again, lots of French explorers in the Midwest, our region of the nation. Which is why if you look at a map, I mean, if you look at Indiana, if you look at Iowa, if you look at Wisconsin, if you look at Michigan, if you look at, we've got lots of French written names, correct? We don't pronounce them in the correct way anymore, but we still have lots of French names in this region. All right, this is going to bring us to our fifth point of our pivotal events chart. We've got 1, we've got 2. I want you to skip 2 spots, and in spot 5, put 1605. Champlain establishes Acacia, the first French colony in Canada. Once it's written down, stand up and stretch. All right, and that then is going to bring us back to our key questions. So again, what we'll do is we'll take a couple minutes and we'll answer who were the major Spanish explorers, who was the major English explorer, and who was the major French explorer.